Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian Marshall, host of the C-Suite Sherpa Podcast, where we focus on great resources for the C-Suite. And speaking of great resources, we have a special guest today, Alasdair Milroy. Alasdair, tell me about your business and who you work with.
Hi, Brian. So my business is in the chartered accounting and consultancy advisory business, and we work generally with high net worth super yacht owners and business owners in the maritime and the super yacht industry.
And I can tell from your accent, you're not from New Jersey. So where are you located?
No, that's right. Yeah, a bit further east than New Jersey. So yeah, I'm from Australia originally, but I live in a small island called Guernsey, which is between France and the UK.
Well, good, good. So you work with small business owners. So tell me about the advisory work you do. So give me an example of the kind of work you do with clients, kind of what's going on in their life where they need you.
Yeah, so we want to provide a sort of fractional CFO, virtual finance office provider. I found a lot of businesses, even when they get to a good seven-figure size, often have issues with their finance functions not being as robust as they could be. So we look at putting those financial metrics in place and building a solid finance team and supporting the business owner that way, but also working with the business owner in terms of their mindset and how they might be getting in their own way of building the team they need to really create value in their business.
Yeah, I've owned a few businesses before I got into the advisory work. And I'll tell you, being a business owner is probably one of the loneliest jobs you'll ever have in your life. It's the most exciting thing I've ever done, but I think it takes a special person to sign up for that kind of work. And I know that for myself, a lot of my work, I made mistakes because I didn't have someone like you to bounce ideas off of. So give me a sense of the kind of, relationship you have with your clients. And what's the end game here? Are you helping them set the business up for exit? Are you helping them grow the business? I mean, give me a sense of the kind of the issues and the work you're doing with clients.
Yeah, so a lot of it's making sure they've got a robust business if they need to sell it or if they want to sell it for any reason. If something comes up personal, that they're in a position to do so. So I like to think that building a business and being ready to exit actually just means having a really healthy business that gives you options.
Yeah.
So that we'll be looking at them, their mindset, maybe where they're stuck, what they're seeing in their business. I previously was a CEO in a couple of businesses, which I think it gave me a sense of what the owners were worried about and what kept them up at night. And a lot of that was actually, unless you're a serial entrepreneur, you don't often sell that many businesses. So it's it's an unknown, and it's like you've got an asset in your business, or an investment, which is potentially worth a lot, but also could be worth nothing. And it's that I think people can get very stuck in that fear. So helping business owners through that and giving them a sounding board that they can talk through things with, and become that trusted advisor that combined with the numbers. I think that's another area that often business owners won't know as well as they should. So being able to interpret those and put them in plain English and link them back into the operational is something that probably feels is a standout from what a lot of other accountants will do, maybe very tax and numbers focused, but connecting that to what's going on in the operations of the business.
I want to dive down a little bit deeper because I think you've touched on something that I feel is very important for people that are, even if they're not thinking about exiting their business, what they really need to do is they need to set their business up to, and here's a phrase I use. I ask owners, so how are you setting your business up to be successful beyond your leadership, beyond your tenure? Because if you think about it, we build these businesses. A lot of times you spend 30 plus years of your life in a business. Maybe your father, your grandfather started the business, or your mother or grandmother started the business, and you're the second or third generation, and they want to see the business survive beyond their leadership. I had a client once that multiple generations, it was a 135-year-old business. And his primary concern was, when you walk into the lobby of the office, it has all the pictures of the leaders, and they all had the same last name. And his picture was the last picture on the wall. He said, "Brian, whatever you do, make sure I'm not the last picture. I want to make sure there's a picture after me on the wall." And if you think about that, it's about continuing, making sure you're being a good steward of the asset, making sure that it survives beyond your leadership. And that's, multi-generation businesses, you have a high failure rate, especially when you get into that third generation as an example, right? But at the end of the day, it's just about optimizing the business. And most of them, like you said, never get a second bite at the apple to do this twice. Now,
Yeah,
no,
with telling you as an advisor as well, but it's where there's that legacy piece. And my background's been working in that private client space and looking after trusts where, part of that is you'll have a settler who's set up a trust which maybe holds the family businesses, etc. But it's then how is that going to be managed into the next generation and the generation after that, and how do you preserve that wealth, but also help. I think a lot of that's bringing those younger generations in early and giving them experience in the business and understanding what the bigger legacy is rather than just themselves. I think family offices are getting better at that than they probably were a couple of generations ago, but it's still an area where having a business advisor who can understand that commercial and finance side, what the other private client advisors, there's often in that sort of family, there'll be lots of different touch points and gatekeepers.
Yeah, there needs to be someone who's quarterbacking. Remember, I've been fortunate or unfortunate, depending on how you look at it, that I've exited multiple businesses. And, and I always joke that not all exits are good. Bankruptcy is an exit. And, in 2008, my real estate business just got absolutely decimated. And I learned all about, why not to personally guarantee real estate transactions, because now I was on the hook for like $9 million in loans. Other than I stuck with it and wrote it down to the bottom, right? And so I learned a lot from that process. How many people get a chance to do this more than once? How many people have the tolerance for pain to want to do it more than once, right? So I think, with your experience having been in that seat, having sat in their seat, my experience having done that before, I think we bring a unique perspective. But I think the one thing that people don't realize is that it takes same amount of effort to set yourself up to really either make sure your business is successful if you're generationally transferring on to the next generation, or to set it up to be sold. It takes the same effort to do that than it does to not do it, but you have the option at the end to get max value for your business if you sell it, right? And so there's a thought process most owners have is, well, when I'm done, I'll just put a for sale sign in the front yard like you do your house and it'll sell. Tell us about that. So what's your experience as far as what percentage of the businesses that go up for sale actually transact and have an exit?
It's very low. I think there's some statistics around in terms of the number of businesses that actually would qualify for a sale. And that's around 80% aren't. So 20% of those, right. Not all those actually go to a deal. And I think particularly with smaller businesses, people forget that a lot of the professional buyers have minimum deal size as well. So you almost need to get, you need to be 10 or 20 million to even be on the table with those things. Otherwise you're selling to maybe your management team, or just the options aren't there as well. And also what we both know, that often in that situation, the owner gets caught to stay on through an earn out, which can be somewhere they, particularly if they think about this late and think, oh, we're going to sell it when they're 55, the last thing they thought they were going to be doing is sitting for 3 or 4 years chained to the business that they really don't want to be in anymore.
Yeah, especially when they've said, I need to get out of this business. I want to move on with my life. My spouse has told me I need to start spending time at home. We're not getting any younger. And then you find out that the only way you're going to get full 100% of the offer price, whatever you've been offered, you're going to find out that half of that is tied to you sticking around for 3 or 4 years and working in the business that you used to run. Now you're an employee. Now you have less control. You have less ability to do the part that you're supposed to do. It's a bad setup. And listen, at the end of the day, smart buyers, know how to structure deals so where they make money. They don't necessarily worry too much about you making money. You make all your money. So you really need to have a professional on your end helping you out for probably the biggest transaction in your life. And, you and I know from our relationship, that's something you do and you do well. So I would encourage people, if you're listening to this, you're located across the pond, you have somebody you're looking for that can guide you through that process. Alasdair's a great guy. I highly recommend him. That's why I asked you to be on the podcast.
I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, no, love to have you. Any last words that you want to share with the people that are watching this, as far as if you're a business owner and you're thinking about exit, you're thinking about getting your books in order. What advice do you have for business owners that you would give them?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of people don't have their finances in the order they should. And actually, when I started, probably when you started as well, Brian, there was, often the finances was something that came, and we're always looking backwards at the past 6 or 12 months because it was all done after your year end and you did your taxes, because that's the way the systems work. But in the last 15 years, the ability to have pretty much up-to-date finances is there. Often still don't see that many businesses taking advantage of that. So I think being in a position where you've got really robust finance processes, and also I think some of the smaller businesses, you can make a mistake at 500,000 or 1 million of turnover, and you can probably get out of it. But when you get to twice, 10 times that, and the same mistake comes up, if you haven't put those systems in place, it's probably going to bring you down. So
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I guess in terms of advice, it's never too early to start. Those systems will need to evolve, but the entry level, cost of a really decent finance system and being able to structure and systemize that, as is just much, probably the best we've ever had it to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I know that you and I can spend all day talking about this stuff, right? I mean, we love this. This is our passion. We love to help people. I'd highly recommend you reach out to Alasdair if you're looking for help. We're going to do something really fun here for a few minutes, but at the end, I'm going to ask you to tell people how they can get in touch with you. So if you're on the podcast, you're waiting for that, Alasdair's going to share that, and we'll put it in the description of this on our YouTube channel, so you'll have access to Alasdair's contact information. But let's pivot. I want to do something fun. It's called the lightning round. So I'm just going to ask you some quick questions, whatever comes to mind. This will be the first time I ask someone from the UK this very first question. So it'll be interesting to see your response.
I hope I understand it, yeah.
Even though you're an Aussie and living in the UK. All right, you ready?
I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, I was expecting tea. Tea with milk.
No, espresso.
Oh, good for
you.
Come
from Melbourne, you've got to drink good coffee.
So you're living in the UK. You're just not a teetotaler.
Yeah.
I mean, I like tea, but I'm a coffee guy. How about cats or dogs?
Dogs. I've got one behind me.
And I've seen your dog.
Yeah.
Dog lovers. So you have a book that you're reading that you would recommend, or a book you've read that's been influential for you?
Gosh, lots and lots, but you've got me stuck now. I'm reading The Blue Zones at the moment, actually. That's been really interesting.
Okay.
Not so much business, but just community and life. And I think a lot that a small island community can learn from.
Okay, good. How about when you're relaxing, maybe you're watching a streaming series or movies? You have anything in particular that you've watched that you'd recommend to people that are looking for a good movie or a streaming series to watch?
Oh, I love something with a twist. So I really enjoyed Homeland and some of those. I like some. Just watch The Matrix again. I think every time I watch that, I learn something else.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
I've watched it multiple times. A lot of parallels between what's going on in life. How about a couple more questions, and then we'll land the plane here. Tell me about an experience in your life where it was really hard, something you had to go through that was tough, but it really made you who you are today, something that you really kind of shaped your life that you'd be willing to share.
Oh, there's a few of those as well. I worked in West Africa for 18 months, just before the end of the turn of the century, and unfortunately had a experience late at night with some visitors. So that was probably one that made me really think about slow down in the moment, but think about what's important.
Yeah, it probably seemed like a great idea at the time until you realize that there's some downside risk.
Yeah. No, and you also, I think you realize how lucky we are not to have to face that risk, because a lot of people there, that's not just a once-off. They're facing that risk regularly.
Face it regularly. Yeah, we are very lucky to be able to not have to deal with some of those things. Well, listen, we're out of time. I want to make sure people have a chance to learn how to contact you. So what's the best way to reach out to you?
I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I've got a website, btmgroupci.com. There's a scheduling page on that, or contact us page on the button on the front of that, CTA. And so you can go on that, complete your details and book a meeting with me, or ask for a call. Yeah, they're probably the best ways to reach out.
All right, terrific. Alasdair, really I always enjoy talking to you. Thanks for being a guest on our podcast. And again, folks, if you're looking for resources, check out the rest of our podcast interviews on the C-Suite Sherpa podcast. We have a great YouTube channel that we'll make sure we share with everyone, and encourage you to go out and look at some of the other great guests we have. Alasdair, thanks again for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It's been great, as always.